Okay, it is 7:09, call the meeting to order. First point on the agenda is questions or comments from the floor. Do we have any? Anyone sign up? No. Okay, so we'll move ahead to the reports. First on the agenda is SSIP.
Quick update, we submitted our invoice for our purchase of our computer, and it should be in.
We're still waiting for ETA. The configuration is done in terms of the network for the white glove setup, so when they come, they'll be pull out of the box, hand over to students, or deploy right away. They're good to go. They're in their peak ordering season right now, so we're just kind of not at the top of the list in terms of sent out yet. We're still hoping that first wave will hit before the start of the year. CDW shipping wise turns around in like 3 or 4 days usually. So as soon as we hit the top of the shipping list, we should have them quite quickly.
And Chris, and our technology specialist met today, or yesterday, about a rollout, making sure that we're looking at things like user agreements, printers, opportunities for kids to print, how we're going to instruct the staff in terms of using Google Classroom, and the PD we're going to do for that, and also some PD for the students as well to get used to using Google Gmail, Google Classroom, and their calendar. And I also went up to Sharon Springs last week to meet with Tom, who was in charge of their rollout, I think 6 years ago now, and picked his brain a little bit on some of the stuff that they did, and some of the stuff they did right, some of the stuff they didn't do right. And so brought some of that back as well. We're meeting again next week.
Yep.
To solidify a PD plan for the rest of the year for the faculty and students, and then start to map out really the next 3 years in terms of strategically looking at what we want to do. So I feel we got a pretty good hand on it, and I think the big piece is making sure that everyone's up, for example, on Google Classroom this year, and make sure that they choose one thing, one initiative in their classroom that they're going to use it for this year. That's the plan of attack.
In terms of the PD, we did have 43 or 44 staff members on the last 2 days after the school year ended take part in a half-day Google-specific training. The feedback from that was really promising. It was geared towards entry-level novice users. We had a handful of office staff members also attend, and they actually expressed a desire to have a more office-specific Google training because the end of the training did go into classroom and things like that aren't quite as office-specific. So that's something we're going to try to coordinate with model schools during the school year and have a model schools trainer come out and do a more office-specific training.
Questions, comments?
So we're using 2-hour delay schedules a couple times this year to get the training in, so all the PD can be there. So one's the beginning of the year, and then we'll assess and when we'll do the next one, because our other conference days are already taken because of the next gen standards. We've already kind of, we're doing with the component school issues already. So we'll pick another day to do another PD as well, and then looking to do like Tech Tuesdays. So she's going to roll out a survey and say, okay, what are the 3 or 4 things you definitely want to learn more about this year? And she'll do a 25 or 30 minute Tech Tuesday seminar for people interested in Google Forms, Google Docs, sheets, that kind of stuff.
I think it's really good that you're doing the pick one thing, because that was helpful for us. Choose one thing that you're going to use this year, and then the next year you can build upon that. And that's good, because then it's so much less stress for the staff, which then makes it less stress for the students. So it's good.
And we're constantly hearing that students maybe aren't organized or don't know what their assignments are, but this is a great opportunity now to teach the kids how to use Gmail correctly, how to use Google Classroom to organize themselves, how to use the calendar, and more than anything, we want to put also a school tool icon on their computer so they can constantly check their grades and update on what they're doing in their classroom too. So we'll train the kids, students in that as well.
As I said before, my big concern is that it not become just a fancy electronic textbook, and that it really have a significant impact on pedagogy. And what I'd like to suggest is that we have periodic reports from different classrooms about what the difference is being made, by having a computer versus before the computer was there. Because I think that would really be helpful for us to see that yes, this is really gonna be a significant change in our ability to engage students, so.
And I think it's a process over some years, because like I said, I think if you push too much from the beginning, you'll get them to go backwards, and I think we wanna make sure that Google Classroom is kind of a non-negotiable, so when a kid logs in, that's what they should see, their Gmail, their calendar, and then, okay, they're in phys ed class right now, or any class, they can pull up a Google Classroom and say, okay, here's the announcements, here's the syllabus, here's the assignment. And then we can work to kind of get them more involved with forums and the rest of the G Suite as well. And then also, let's have English pick one area that they're going to use technology this year, but social studies one area, science one area. And then obviously more people will put more time into it, but if we push an initiative through, you want to make sure everyone's on board, not just halfway. So.
I understand your point, Nick, but what Mark and I have been saying from the beginning of this is the way that the district gets the money out of the investment is that the learning environment changes and the curriculum delivery mechanism changes. And there are other schools in the area that put all their textbooks on the PC that the person carries.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a plan of where are we trying to go and what does that timeline look like, I think the investment that we're making into this is really just going to be a glorified PDA that they're carrying around.
Great.
Instead of changing the way that we're actually delivering the education tools to them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Anything else? All right, moving right along, we have the capital project update and the contingency list. Do you want to lead that off?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, well, the contingency list, you all have the list. Well, this is actually the ad alternates that we had chosen to go to bid with back then. The items in yellow are ones that we approved with the bid. So those are being done now. And then the ones in red are ones that a couple of them, like the Nellis air handlers, we thought we had to do it for code compliance, but we don't. The units are working fine, so there's no reason to do that one. The solar hot water, the cost was too high to justify the savings, so we didn't do that one. And then the high school clocks, it's just, they work fine, they just don't change during daylight savings, so we go around and change them. Figure for $29,000, we go around and change them. So those three, we kind of booted out. So these teachers' room, we'd like to do the upgrade of the teacher's room at the elementary school.
What is that upgrade? I don't remember.
Okay, in the Canajoharie Elementary School, are you familiar where the teacher's room is? There's a room back by the custodian's room. And then there's also the copy room, and then there's the mail room. They're all in one little area. And this is to upgrade. They would basically gut that whole area and redesign it so that it could be an actual teacher. They would have refrigerator, sink. It used to be where they stored the lawn equipment years ago. It was kind of just a rough-looking room with a table. So in the middle school, they added the teacher's faculty room there, and that would be kind of like that, only a little bit smaller. And then, of course, they would add, and a section of it would still be for the copier and the mailbox. So that's the kind of the plan. There is some asbestos abatement in that part of the project, and that's why we kind of like to get it approved now, so we can get the asbestos abated before school starts. So, and then at the bus garage, it would be the addition of cameras. There are no cameras at the bus garage now. and there's no card access like we have
Gary,
at the school.
could I just interrupt a minute? Could you just talk about the contrast between the elementary teacher's room and the middle and high school teacher's rooms?
Okay,
Just
well,
so that people will understand
Okay.
the inequity.
All right, well, the middle school teacher's room is new. It's getting done in this project. Before, it was just a small room off of the office. Now it's gonna be a much larger room with, counter space and refrigerator and a sink and room to have a table and stuff like that. I don't know, is there a copier going in here?
Essentially, we're going from a copier room where there was a copier and mailboxes and a sink. There was no, like, you couldn't sit and eat lunch. There was no teacher's room whatsoever. In the CAP project, where the old conference room was, that essentially is being opened up into the copier room and the old conference room, so that a teacher can go in and eat their lunch and make copies, and there's actually a usable workroom there. So that is new. We had not had one up until this point.
And then here at the high school on the second floor is a nice faculty room, has a counter and refrigerator and, room to have a microwave and stuff like that. And a big area for a table to eat their lunch or do whatever work they would like doing. There's a copier in that room. So it wouldn't be as big as either of those two because the space is just that much smaller, but it would be much nicer than what they have now. It gives them the ability to actually do something like that. Right now, it's just a table. So, and East Hill has never really had a faculty room to speak, so this would give them that opportunity.
Okay, so I interrupted and you're going on to the last part.
Okay. So that's, any other questions?
I have, what does the abatement consist of? What are you looking at,
That's
tiling, walls,
Floor
flooring?
tile, and the adhesive. So if this would have went in, we were looking to do this back in April, but because we didn't decide on it then because of money, obviously. Now I'd like to, if we're gonna do it, I'd like to decide on it and be able to get that abatement done before school. They won't have the room done before school. And on there, the 300,000 was updated today. It was actually 395,000. I somehow mistaken that. So it does give us a good buffer, so that if we do all four of these ad alternates, we would still have like $130,000 left in contingency money. So the other one, the bus garage, again, would be cameras. It doesn't have any, and then card access, which it doesn't have. It would be like the school. Instead of using a key, the bus drivers would have a card. We have this card in. So that's the upgrade up there. And then as you know, we've done the track and field work. The D zones have been paved, so kind of leaves like we were talking about doing the goal posts. And I had the site engineer out there today. We were looking it over. The field events used to be on the side of the football field. And they now are on, the pole vaults are on the end, and the D zones and the triple jump is outside in the back. So the field is not centered on the track, it's off center by about by 5.8 feet. So by moving the football field to the middle, it gives it more of a buffer on like the bleacher side of the football field. Gives it a little more room for the sideline. We looked over the goalposts that are there. The one on the north end is leaning, so the refs haven't complained about it yet, but at some point, because it's not straight, it could become an issue. About 6 years ago, the weld had cracked on that one, and we had a plate welded in there to shore it up. So right now it's okay, but we don't know how long it will be okay. If we were to put new goalposts in, that would give us the opportunity to center the football field onto the track And with the new goals, they're built better than these old ones. They have adjustments, so if it should start to tilt, we can actually adjust it back into position, which we can't do with these. The new ones come with padding on the post for safety, so nobody runs into them. They're just a more modern, better built goal post. So it would be, I think, the best interest of the district to go ahead with that. Because if something should happen and it's not in a project, we wouldn't be able to get state aid on the replacement. We can get it now.
What about the crowning of the field? I found that interesting.
Yeah, the crown of the field isn't very high. It's like a 1% slope, and it's not even all the way through anyway. So that moving 5.8 feet to the east isn't going to affect anything as far as the crown. The crown wouldn't be quite in the middle of the football field, but it's such a low crown, visually it's barely noticeable. And it has no effect on the football
Okay. Any questions or comments?
players. There was one more adult.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry. So, and then the last one was, we put the track and field, there's track and field events, not track, but field events are on the back side of the track along the hill. And this alternate would be to put a asphalt walkway from the walkway we put in a couple of years ago, out and over past those field events, so that has easier access, more for ADA compliance. Even though it's not fully required for ADA, it would be something that would make sense. That way somebody could get out there with a wheelchair or whatever. But it would be better even for the players and the people, the spectators. So that would be the 4 head alternates we're looking to do.
As a part of the walkway stuff, is the gate being dealt with on the walkway?
There's no,
Yeah, where we have the chain hanging now, so everybody just walks on the grass and, or no?
I'm sorry, I lost you.
The walkway that you're talking about,
Yes,
is
between-
it gonna connect to the one that goes from the building down to the football field?
Yes.
And how are we gonna deal with vehicles not being able to go up on that one?
Well, we've got the paths, we've got a cable across on each end so that vehicles aren't allowed onto the path. Now during the game, we have to take one down from the ambulance. But when there's nothing going on, we have those cables on each end. So in the evenings, nobody will be able to drive.
But what you're proposing is, when you get to the football field, the path is gonna continue and go down toward the elementary school and then to the right along the back of the football field to get to the new field event area, right?
It would go right at the end of the track, just outside the fence of the track on the north side. It would go across there and then just back along where the field is, behind the track. So it'd be like where our garage is, just past where our new garage is.
So they would connect across that area, right?
Yes.
Which also connects to the dirt pathway that goes down to the elementary school, right?
Well, it's not dirt, it's asphalt all the way to the elementary school.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes.
So, I guess what you're saying then is you're figuring that the cables on the 2 ends allow somebody not to get on it, so you don't have to do anything in the middle there where it goes out behind the field,
I mean,
right?
yes,
Okay. I've noticed that other schools, some of them have started putting like a pole on each side and a pole in the middle that they can lift out so that people can actually walk all the way through and not have a cable where people have to walk around it. Have we considered doing something like that?
We can look into that. Generally, those poles have a lock at the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So they were removable.
Yes.
Yep.
That would be one way, probably more secure than what we have now.
I think it would be more conducive to the foot traffic that happens too, because then they can stay on the path.
Yeah, what we did on each end, I don't know if you've noticed, but we put a sidewalk out and around it
Yeah,
so that they wouldn't have to step over the cable. But putting a pole in the middle would definitely keep cars on it. I mean, I guess nothing would keep them on it. Well, we haven't had any issue. But yeah, you could look into that.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Gary. This is on approvals as well, correct? Okay.
can I ask you a question not related to this?
Maybe.
I mean, it's facilities, so Gary, that's why I'm asking. Back a while ago, Gary, you were gonna look at room air conditioners
Mhm.
for the upper level. Do we have quotes for what that would cost us?
Okay, yes. I talked with the architect, and there's a couple of ways it can be done, but they're all expensive. To put in, first of all, if we were to put window air conditioners sized large enough to cool the classroom, the power in the building isn't sufficient to handle like one in every room. It just doesn't have that, it's building 52, it just doesn't have that type of power. So whether we went with a split unit or we go with a window air conditioner, at this point, to do 41 rooms is what we would need to do, because that's how many classrooms right now are not air conditioned.
How many are on the second floor?
You're talking just the second floor? Okay. My understanding was that we wanted to do all of them.
No, we just asked about the second floor because of
That-
how hot it got.
That didn't get to me.
Because of how hot it gets at the beginning of the school year
Mhm.
and the end of the school year. All that heat is in the second floor rooms.
Well, I'll
That
have
was
to
our
go
question.
back to the drawing board on that and see what we could do. I do know that the sub-panel, each section has its own sub-panel from the main. The sub-panels don't have enough power, to do that wing. We would have to bring power from somewhere else. But if we're only looking at doing I think there's 10 rooms upstairs.
No, it's a lot less than 40, but I don't know the
Right.
exact
I
number.
believe it's either 9 or, I think it's either 9. I don't have it with me, but let me go back to the drawing.
Because that was our request, was to look at that and get a price, because something reasonable to see whether we could make a dent for the few weeks at the beginning of the year and the few weeks at the end of the year when some of those classrooms were 85, 86 degrees.
I agree,
Yep.
and I think it should be a priority in the next project to air condition the air conditioned spaces at the school. But let me look at that, that wasn't my understanding, so.
Sorry, there was crossed wires.
Okay, so let me look back at that, see if there is something we can do there.
Thank you.
I got one more question. Is there one side of the building that's hotter than the other, or does it matter at that point?
Depends on what time of day it is.
All right, I don't know if like south, north facing, which,
Yeah, well, the building kind of sits north and south.
yeah,
So, it'll be, in the morning, the east side is hot.
all right, so it's somewhat negligible. I didn't know if there was a noticeable difference between one side or the other.
Yeah, but, I mean, the south wing is usually pretty warm, but the upstairs is definitely
Yeah.
warm. Because the heat rises off.
Right.
All right.
All right, thank you, Gary. All right, with the board's approval, I know that Lori's here for food issues, and if people would agree, like to ask her to present on the food issues, so you don't have to hang around while we do other things. Is that agreeable?
Yes. That's the lunch renewal, right?
So that's with the renewal, the food service bids, and the total prices? Is that what, yes? Okay, so if that's agreeable, why don't we move on to those points, and then we'll go back to the discussion question. So, the school lunch program renewal.
over last year. We're continuing with the same 2 kitchens, the same breakfast and lunch programs. So there's nothing here to report, other than, you know, we're pledging that we're continuing to serve both breakfast and lunch in both buildings.
And you got the grant, which is great too, right? The grant, 25 cents off.
Yep, that's our best news coming out of food service at the moment, is that we did qualify. Some of you may be aware of the 30% farm to school incentive that we had been trying to reach. We were able to come in at 33.1% of our purchases. That's in large part due to the fact that we're purchasing our milk from Skiff's Dairy, and Skiff's Dairy utilizes New York State milk. So without that, you know, we wouldn't be in the position we are, but because we did make that with 33%, we did receive our approval last week, and so now for this coming school year, we'll receive 25 cents more per lunch of reimbursement. We serve here in excess of 100,000 lunches per school year. Last year we were somewhere around 104,000 lunches, so we are talking a minimum of $25,000 additional reimbursement that we will receive this year in our federal reimbursement and state reimbursement that comes in. So that should help to go a long way towards closing that little bit of gap that we've had by choosing to remain CEP, and we're really lucky we may be able to be in a position of at least breaking even because of that extra money.
I might have missed it, but what did that gap turn out to be for us? That financial gap by us going?
I'm not surely aware of exactly we finished, but
Yeah, everything was just finalized today, so I'd have to go back and check.
Oh, okay,
but less than the 25.
okay.
Yeah.
So we were real close, like.
Yes, at this point in time, the 25 would make up for that, so.
Great.
And that's exclusive of any other changes, you know,
Right.
that we're looking at and hoping to do.
Okay, food service bids. Anything new there?
Our bids are done as a cooperative bid through HFM BOCES, with just about all the other schools in the BOCES participating in the bid. We came in with no major surprises as far as milk, bread, chemical, ice cream, and so on. The only change that we're going to note in our program is the fact that we were using Driscoll Foods, which is in the Old Quants facility in Amsterdam, and they chose not to bid. And Cisco Albany also chose not to bid in the HFM cooperative bid this year. So for us, it just means manpower-wise, all of our food will be coming on Thursdays instead of spread out over different days of the week. We'll have 2 very large shipments from U.S. Foods in Ginsburg every Thursday. But we'll make some adjustments on our end just to make sure that the ladies are ready. Because we know what happens, the truck always comes during breakfast or lunch. But our custodial staff's very helpful as far as if that does happen and we don't have anyone that can step away, they give us a hand.
What does that bottom mean, the NOI items not bidded, fully priced at Cisco
yeah.
Albany?
NOI is net off invoice. We receive government commodity food based on our poverty numbers and our participation numbers. And your government commodities are available to the school in 2 different formats. One format is what they call a bulk brown box commodity. So those are foods that come directly from USDA warehouses. They go to here, it happens to be Cisco Albany, and are delivered to us. So that's what we think of as government commodities, you know, canned corn and vegetarian beans and, you know.
So Cisco's basically just the distributor of it?
They're just the distributor that has the contract with OGS, and they've had the contract with them for the last couple of years. But I have the option of taking some of those funds and diverting them to further processing. So in other words, if I have a certain allocation of mozzarella cheese, I can give that allocation of bulk mozzarella cheese to Schwann's to return it back to us in the form of a frozen pizza product. Would be an example. We do it with a lot of different, with tomatoes and potatoes and a lot of different things. What it does for us is it allows us to purchase particularly some items a lot of times that the kids really like but would probably be too pricey to serve. An example would be the kids love the peanut butter and jelly that's in the little round, the little round crustless things. Those would be too pricey for us to use on a daily basis if I was not able to divert peanuts and flour to that and then receive those at a discounted cost. The other piece that comes into doing that is we only have so much room here for storage. And especially, the problem is a lot of the bulk items that are provided to me to choose from are frozen items. And we're in a severe freezer situation, especially at East Hill, because we're feeding 450 kids, which is great, in a freezer that's probably suited for 350 kids. So by using the diversion process, it also lets us save a little space on some of these bulk foods by putting it into some of these other products that are, what I do is I order things that are going to be quickly used. And I try to time it so that, we get in and we use those products in the next 2 weeks and get them right back out of here again. But there is a bit process for all of that as well.
Thank you for that detail.
And the last item is the adult prices.
And the districts no longer have the option of establishing their own adult meal prices. Our school districts are, and we've kind of gotten away from this for the last couple of years of being free, but we have regulations now as to what the student meal prices have to be. And there's a formula every year for what the minimum student prices are. And then your adult prices are a certain percentage over the student price. So basically what they do is looking at what our students would be paying if we weren't CEP, and then it has to be a certain percentage above that for your adult prices. These are the 2 minimum adult prices for New York State for this year. So we really, basically we don't have a choice. We have to put ours to the minimum that's required.
Do we have many adults buy meals?
I guess I probably wouldn't say many.
Okay.
I'm gonna say between 15, 18 a day, maybe 20. Probably more a la carte, so than the entire meal. And people getting salads or grabbing a dessert or a side dish to supplement something else they brought home.
Thank you.
Okay, so, if there are any other questions, thank you very much, and you're welcome to stay, but not retired.
Okay, thank you.
Great job with the play, by the way.
Thank you.
Music's outstanding, before playing and watched it, kids did an outstanding job, so thank you.
We missed our beautiful facility here, but I did appreciate that we made the
Yes.
arrangements so that the show could go on.
Putting down before playing, but yes.
Yes, but yes, I missed our facility here greatly.
It
That's
was
for
a great,
sure.
outstanding job, especially a bunch of new kids, so.
Yeah, a lot of new kids. Also, I will note that our summer meal program ends next Friday, and it has been extremely successful. And I would call your attention to Mrs. Kay May. She stepped in to do the summer program because Debbie Kraus had to have some last-minute foot surgery that she had not planned on. And so Kay has stepped up and done the summer program by herself, never having done so before, and she's done an outstanding job. It's been very successful, we're very happy. Considering we have a small number of kids in the building due to construction, we've still fed 15 to 20 kids walking in off the street, plus sending 55 meals down to the center. So Kay's done a great job with that.
Please express our thanks and appreciation.
Sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll head back to discussion of B, which is the district logo and branding.
Yeah, so we talked about kind of branding our district a little bit in terms of our mission, vision, and values, also our goals as well. We have opportunity where I talked to Tracy Evans and Sarah Wheeler. You guys instructed me, I think Tracy was looking at this earlier, and they both put kind of their heads together and came up with some great plans or proposals to go forward. So this would kind of be our logo, per se, our branding of our district. And these are just examples. So on the website, for example, you would be able to hover over mission, and the mission would come up. And you can click on it, it would take you to the mission, vision, and values as well. And then we thought about the goals, which is the next one on there too, because it's the whole district. So the C encapsulates the entire district, but puts all the 4 pieces together. So that's the thought concept. So that would go on, I would recommend that would go on our website, that would go on our letterhead, and because, as Scott said, made a good point, how many people know our mission, vision, and values, and even so much our goals. We want to get that out as much as we possibly can, so you can see this logo on newsletters, websites, Facebook, Twitter, and also on our letterhead as well. So just an idea of what you're thinking, and any recommendations going back to those two about what you like, what you didn't like, any changes. I actually like the goal one, all four.
Any comments? Well, I have one. What I would really like to see is, I think, to me, it would be more visually appealing, would be to have the C in the center, but have the rings interlocked and superimposed above it. You know, so the C would kind of be in the background.
Like an Olympic
Huh?
set of circles, like an Olympic set of
Yeah, you know,
circles.
they're all interlinked with the C kind of a little more faded in the background.
Yeah.
I just think that would be, to me, a more unified image.
And we did that with the 3, but the 4 we had trouble connecting. The way I was envisioning it, the way we were envisioning was that C was the district, that's the big piece. We're the district now, these are the things that make us love it. Yeah, we can take a look at that too.
Just a
Come up with another logo.
suggestion.
Yep.
I don't know if anyone else like that.
I think it's important to brand our district, and I think Scott had a good idea in terms of, you know, how many people can tell us what the mission, vision, and values are.
I like on the one that's 3, I like the C is prominent for Canjo. But I like the idea of the goals being incorporated. So that's my feedback on that. And 4 doesn't work nicely in line with the C.
Right.
So I get that, but I would play with that a little bit. And I think the one with the 3 kind of gets at what you were saying, Mark, is they're a little bit, you can see that one's kind of set back more than the other, you know. I think your idea is the opposite, though, that the C is set back and the others are in front. For a logo on letterhead and stuff, I would probably have the C be more prominent personally on the internet, on the website. I think depends what you hover on, right?
Yep.
But that's just my personal opinion. The other thing, so first, thank you, because I think this is great progress, and hopefully we'll have some other feedback for you. The other thing that we had talked about is on each of the values, determining some sort of logo to represent those values, in like an icon, right? And I can envision as we make this web-based, that there's an icon for those, and we kind of work on the exemplar language. That was the next thing that we were going to do. So we've articulated our values, but we haven't really put an exemplar of what exactly that means here, right? What does that look like? What do we expect it to look like? And those were the next 2 things.
And the icon's just for the value piece.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're enjoying
Those
this
are
a
just
lot
the
more.
things that those are just the things that we had
Yeah.
as next on the agenda when we were talking about those things a year ago. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Good. We'll go back to the drawing board a little bit with it. They're both of them around the ball with this, so they're looking forward to the feedback and coming up with a great plan. So empowering the people to do some work.
I like the one with 3 rings a little bit better, just because it's a little bit less busy for me.
Yeah.
Is there, I know you're saying you're looking at the branding, is there any words or anything like that? Like, for example, I know you have like, you know, vision, mission. Like, I like that every learner together, world ready. You know, is there any, have you used any language or small little words that would stick out? So if at least people saw a logo, something might stick to that, but does that make sense? Or is there, you know, for the vision, is there 1 word or 2 words that could encapsulate the vision?
Right.
Or, you know what I mean?
Or just the same for the district for the most part.
Yeah.
Underneath, is that what you're kind of?
Yeah, however, yeah, I'm just like.
I think that's a great.
Yeah, let's take a look, we'll take a look at all those. Good. We'll come back next month with another run.
Maybe this one with the goals interlocked across the 3 rings underneath. That might be an interesting look, that the goals are derived from our vision, mission, and values.
Good point.
That kind of gets the interlocking aspect that you were looking at. different,
I think something else too, just what you just said struck me, is if you have, I like the one with the three as well, but if we wanted to make it center the way it is here, but kind of with the goals underneath, as Scott just said, and then incorporating what Scott said over the top half,
what Chris said.
or what Chris said,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Getting all confused. So you have that over the top, the C, and then the three, and then the goals right there. I don't know how big that will all be, but visually,
Yep.
that might bring it all together of everybody's different thoughts.
Yeah, that fine line of having it a logo but not too
Right,
busy where people are now
exactly.
distracted.
Yeah.
But
So,
I think the idea was the mission vision, the goals kind of came in at the end, but I think they have to be part of something. And the mission vision and values where people can kind of just look at that and say, all right, now I know exactly what you're talking about when you say mission. Vision. Don't get too busy and look at a thing and say, I'm not even gonna look at that, we don't want that either. So, yeah.
But I think the phrase that Chris referred to is something that should be incorporated. I
Yes,
think that's
definitely.
great, and that would
yeah,
be great.
something like that.
Perfect. We'll come back next month with
Yeah, exactly.
all those
Yeah.
ideas.
I envision what you're
Okay.
saying.
Okay, are we, anything else on that? Okay, moving right along to approvals. Do I have a motion for a consent agenda?
I make a motion.
Second,
Second.
is there anything we want to pull out?
I was not here for the July 11th, so I would need to abstain.
Okay, so we pull out minutes. Anything else? Okay, so do a consent agenda from B through, what is it?
Dummies.
So W, okay. So it's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll start with minutes. And we have the reorganization minutes from 7-Eleven. I had one thing, which is, it says that Stacy Ward was present. I don't remember her being there.
This is for, no, it's for reorg, yes, I went.
Yeah, I don't think she
No,
was.
no, she-
Okay. I was trying to think through the
Yeah.
room. I don't think she was.
Okay, and then, so anything else on reorg? Alrighty, then moving right along to the, draft, what is it, final 7-Eleven.
This is the regular meeting.
So that's for the 7-Eleven meeting. I would like to, make one correction, and that was the part where the, let's see, the part about the board self-evaluation. I'm finding it.
It's under discussion.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, the Board of Education will meet to discuss a proposed process for self-evaluation on August 20. Actually, we will meet to conduct our self-evaluation on that day using the NISBA template, which I will be emailing to you within the next couple of days.
I'm leaving Saturday.
Well, maybe I'll do it tomorrow then.
I'm leaving tomorrow, so.
I'm not doing it while I'm on vacation.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay? Anything else on these minutes from the 7-Eleven meeting?
Was Stacy there for the meeting then? If she wasn't there for the reorg, but
Right, she was
For the
there for the
regular.
meeting.
for the regular, okay.
Okay, we're good with that? And then finally, the draft 7:30 minutes.
It's a
Anything?
special call meeting.
Anything on that? That was a special meeting
Everybody's
to appoint
address
the
is
guidance
correct.
counselor. We're good? Alrighty. Next item is bills. Anything on that?
Do you want to vote on the minutes?
Yes, you need to.
What?
We need to vote on the minutes, because that's not part
Oh,
of the
okay,
consent
okay,
agenda.
fine. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
So this is the reorg minutes. We'll do that first, and all in favor?
With our friendly amendments.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Jen? Okay. And then the final 7-11 minutes for the meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Jen? And then the 7:30 minutes for the appointment of the guidance counselor. I have a motion.
A motion.
Motion. Oh, second, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, now moving along to bills. Any questions or comments on the bills? I just have one, number 57-317, Burnt Hills, Ballston Lake, $22,000. I haven't seen that before that I recall.
That was for a foster child that was placed in that school district. It's our child, so.
Anything else? All righty, and we get to the treasurer's report. Any comments or questions there? I know I said I would refrain from doing this, but the night class is 1.9%, the general fund money market is 0.7%. And we were gonna look into if we could do any part of that, since it's always replenished.
Yeah, when we start getting our state aid payments in September, and then also our tax revenue, they're all in that account, so, get a lot of interest. So I'll do that when we start getting all that.
So we will be able to use part of that as a night class?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it'll basically double the amount of money, at least more than double the amount of money we're getting in interest, and that's thousands of dollars. So, I think that'd be great. But that's all I'll say on it. I won't do any more math on that. Any other questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, and then we have school lunch. We have all three of those, so we'll go to G, eliminate scholarship and superintendent evaluation committees. You want to comment on that?
So we talked about our reorg meeting, there's not even the two committees anymore.
I think we talked about it at the board retreat.
Board retreat too, yes, sorry, board retreat.
Okay, so any comments or questions on that?
Remind me about the scholarship one?
They're all determined by
Class rank,
the class rank and the wills and how it's done.
and what schools they go into.
Right, so there's all we're literally doing is sitting there going, okay, that's what's happening, so.
Not actively involved in the process.
If we were actively involved looking at essays, applications, or things like that, then it would make sense, but since, if that's something that they want the board to do, because in some places that happens, but that has not been the case.
Okay, anything else on that?
So, I think that's been okay. Are we concerned that could go awry? I don't know how else to say that, I'm sorry, I was trying to think of a better way.
Well, I think it's a matter of, we are still approving it. It's just as a formal approval, but there's no input from school board members in terms of how it is being distributed, because that is all relayed based on their class rank. And, I mean, unless we want to make it, where if there were certain scholarships where students had to submit an essay and they were anonymous and they sent it out to the board members, you know, here are 5 applicants, A, B, C, D, E, and for you to look at it, that would be a different story, but that's not the type of thing that's
No,
happening.
I understand that. I'm just wondering, do we need some sort of, I understand how it's worked,
Mhm.
I got that,
Okay.
and that makes total sense what you're
Okay,
saying.
yeah.
I'm questioning whether that process is appropriate, and are we overseeing the distribution of those funds and ensuring that nothing is being done inappropriately in that? That's my question.
I agree with that.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, I follow you, and I would have that question too, but,
So that's what was behind me asking, are we okay with that? And should it be that way? I'm just throwing that out for us to consider.
I think Jen said you would still be approving, but
Yeah.
the process, you know, you would trust in me looking at that process to make sure that it's done correctly. And you would approve it if you had any questions, you could.
Well, I'm not sure actually who did it. Wasn't it the high school principal and the guidance counselor?
There's a committee.
Was there a committee?
And have one that could
Okay, all right. That's, I
Yep.
just want to make sure somebody's overseeing this so that,
we don't know who's on the committee. All we
Yeah.
did was show up and say,
Yeah.
and here's the information, and we said, okay. So that's why I'm saying, if there is a committee, then we should be a part of that committee, if we're gonna have it, you know, otherwise.
that would be appropriate,
So maybe instead of abolishing it as a committee, maybe what we should do is make sure that the board members who are involved with that are present when the scholarships are being discussed.
Are you opposed to being present via FaceTime or other electronic communication? Because there are many scholarship meetings, many. It's a really time-consuming process.
Yeah, it does, you vet out the kids and process it, so.
It's during the school day.
Yeah, so I don't know how, you know, what everybody wants to do about that.
I don't think we need to be a part of the committee per se, and we're approving it, Nick's involved, there's a committee already at the school-based level, I don't want to get, you have a
Yeah,
I'm just thinking
micromanaging, I agree.
micromanaging,
Yep.
I'll just leave that up to Nick, and Nick approves it according to the committee, and then brings it to us, and if we have questions, we just ask Nick, or we don't approve it if we don't agree with something.
And those names do come to the board.
Yeah.
Who would,
Yeah, but even at that, we really have no insight. We don't know what people are ranked at that point. We don't know whether people have made other decisions based on other parameters. And that was my question, is are we okay with this from a fiduciary perspective, with the board really not being involved and approving something with, you know, the funds that are set aside for this, for the board to approve distribution, and really there's no involvement. So, I don't wanna micromanage either, right?
I hear what you're saying, that's part of our responsibility.
Right.
It's the
Financial
financial
management.
management.
Can I just suggest that maybe as part of the consideration, you know, approval of that a report be submitted that just explains you know, who got what and why.
And who's on the committee, because we have no idea who's making
Would that
decisions.
satisfy?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just
don't
I'm
think
not
you have
even-
to be, yeah.
I'm not even, I wasn't even saying we have to do it differently.
Right.
I just wanted us to discuss that and, you know.
So would that, a report of that nature
I think
satisfy your
Yeah,
concerns?
I think that's fine.
Is that something that's too onerous to ask?
No, the scholarship committee members, that's fine. There are a lot of individual scholarships and the wills can get pretty
tedious.
Yeah. But I'll see we have a rough rubric that I can send out to you.
Yeah, I mean, it just has to be a sentence or two, just so we have a sense of
Yep.
what the
No,
basis
I'm
of the
not-
different scholarships are. right, so next we have, transportation contract, Star and Strand. Any questions there? Who's Star and Strand? I'm not
It's a-
familiar with that.
Private transportation.
Is that a new company we're using? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's not somebody I don't think we used last school year, but it's Medicaid.
Oh, this is, special transportation, is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, so nothing different about that from previous contracts? Okay, any other questions?
How do we determine who we give it to? Do we go out to bid for those contracts, or, I'm just curious now that I'm thinking about it.
I'd have to double check, because this was already done before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can double check on that.
I did talk to Jeanette before she left on vacation, and I believe with Star and Strand, the case was that this is who the student was using prior to this, so they continued to purchase this.
Continue. And their costs are in line with other outlets that might be on these.
I would trust Jeanette.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, school resource officer, anything new there?
Just the agreement, the update, just additional costs, a slight salary increase, and then the rest is medical, which for the most part.
And all the parameters are the same, that hasn't changed? Okay. Anything else on that?
So I have a question that was never resolved, so Nick, this isn't pointed at you, but
Yep.
you're the one that we would have to ask it to. There was, when we first started down this road, there was some special, anti-bias training and stuff available to police, and we had requested that that occur. Do you know if it ever has? Because at the time when we started down this road, the person had not received that certification, and we wanted them to.
He did go to that training.
That was my
Yes.
question, because we never.
He did go to that training.
Yes, he went from a safety officer to a school resource officer.
That I know definitely.
You know, definitely went through that training.
It's something community, I don't remember. It's for police officers, and it's about bias, and it's community-based and all that. It's a special week-long kind of thing just for that.
And again, I'm not sure, Mark might know more than I do, but I definitely know that SRO training was complete.
We just confirmed
Yep.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the course name.
I'm sure they'll know, 2 seconds.
At the time, there was a certified trainer over at Cobblestone. At the campus.
And I want to correct, I mean, I know he went through the school
Yes,
resource
it's all-
officer training.
Yeah.
I don't know that he specifically went through the bias
Right.
training, so we can verify that. Okay, anything else on the school resource officer? Moving right along, a lot of improvements today. Advanced therapy, any questions there? That's for, vision impairment?
I had one question. I know that it was, the hourly rate is there, $110 an hour. Do we know roughly, I mean, is that, how many thousands of dollars that costs us?
I believe that they only come once a week. I can look into see what we paid this past year. I don't think it was that much, maybe a couple thousand.
All right, I was just curious. I was thinking maybe 10,000.
No,
I don't
it
recall
wasn't,
seeing
it was
that.
definitely less than that.
All right.
Okay, then we have Langen. Any questions there? Center for Disability Services.
This is only for a student on this side.
Well, looks like it's doing well as well.
Oh, yeah, there's no.
Yeah, that's quite a deal.
You okay with that?
Yep.
Yes?
I am.
Okay. Red Cross, we will be the savior for anybody in an emergency situation.
They didn't change anything to the agreement, did
Just the name.
Okay, we're good with Red Cross. Contract for services, Four Winds, tutorial contract, any questions there?
Is this new? I didn't remember 4 ones.
We've had
Yeah.
this for a long time.
Yeah, we've had that for
Yeah.
many years.
All right.
Okay, anything there? Any big changes at all? Okay. Home health care services, substitute nursing service.
This is the same company we used before.
Yes, yes.
Good on that?
Yes.
A memorandum of understanding, Fulmont Community Action Center. Anything there, any changes?
This is our PK3 agreement, is that right?
This agreement is like the umbrella agreement, and then they have a separate pre-K 3 and a UPK.
Okay, so they're providing both. Okay.
All right, we good on that? Pre-K3, any questions there? No. Yep,
No.
okay, how about UPK?
Do we know numbers projected for this year?
Off the top, no.
I just wonder whether it's continuing to grow. I know when we started it, it seemed to have gone like this, and I'm wondering if it plateaued or not.
I have to double check for you.
Okay, we good with Fulmont? Transportation training compensation, any questions there?
This is what we talked about last
Yeah.
month about.
Did you put a time limit on it?
Yes, it's, they will get paid after a year of service. From 6 months to a year of service, they'll be compensated for the training. They will be paid immediately for the background check. Is that correct?
Yes, that will allow us to get, at least get them there for, hold on to them for at least 6 months to a year. And hopefully by then they really enjoy themselves here and they don't go. He said it's usually you get between 2 and 4 drivers a year, maybe 5, yeah, if we're lucky.
Any questions? Good? All righty. Moving along to EPC lease. So this, I assume, is just the resolution reaffirming our EPC contract?
Correct.
And again, just to refresh everyone's memory that this will not actually be money out of our pockets, and they guarantee that savings will compensate for any payments that we need to make, and they will compensate us should it fall short. That's the way that the contract works.
Correct. We have a kickoff meeting the 20th of August and it should be done through the fall. It's amazing how much they can get done, during the second shift, and all the classrooms, everything will be pretty much finished.
Any questions on the EPC lease, please?
So what is our layout for this?
What do you mean layout?
I think it's on page 9. It
Are we
shows
paying
that,
in-
yeah, we do have to pay, payments, and then the savings is supposed to come back to us from there, so.
So,
They guarantee it.
yeah, the guarantee, is that on an annual basis? So is there a true-up period after the annual, what we spent and what we paid them
I believe it's annual.
annually? And their guarantee is that we'll save at least what we paid them? Is that the guarantee?
The guarantee is actually more.
I think it's the question, the thing is at least. Hopefully we'll say more than that.
No, but I think they guarantee.
At least we'll be held harmless
Yes.
financially.
So then, Leah, are you gonna keep track of our expenses and is the comparison, our utility
I think
expenses?
Johnson Controls keeps track.
Do they?
They'll give us an update every,
And is it savings year to year or savings from original expenses?
I think it's year to year, but I'll have to double check, I don't know.
they'll actually be here, they'll be presenting here numerous times in terms of what the results are. I know, the last two districts, they sent monthly reports in terms of how much money they're saving.
I'm just, our utility bill still comes to us though, right? So we should notice, do we make them an annual payment? I know it's listed on page 9 as annuals, but is that the way we pay it? In annual
Yes.
sums?
Yeah.
So.
The financing part, yeah.
So, if our utility bills, we're not seeing them drop, that should be an indicator to us right away that this isn't kind of working, because that's a lot of money, $2.6 million over 15 years.
18
It's
years.
18.
I'd just like to say, I mean, Scott, that when, this was originally presented to us in great detail, it was very clear that we would be held financially harmless, and that they would guarantee that, and that we would not cost the district a penny
Right.
ultimately because of they're guaranteeing the savings that they provide through their efficiency will compensate us for any expenses.
I remember that. I just am wondering, that's a lot of money, and I wouldn't necessarily just want to rely on their word that they're saving us the money.
Well,
So I wanted to, you know what I'm saying, I wanted to make sure that
I think you're gonna be
we've got a
surprised.
mechanism to be able to see that we're saving the money.
I think you'll be surprised at the reports that they come out with. They'll take our bill, they'll take the savings, I think you'll be really surprised.
All right.
Actually, I think your numbers guy, you'll like it. It's very detailed.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I remember what they promised us, I
Okay.
just,
You want to see the performance.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we were gonna be able to actually see that somehow, to know that, okay, it's working or it's not.
You want to see the P.
Yeah, I wanna see the money.
All right, are we good on that then?
Yes.
And we'll evaluate it as we go along and look for these reports and so forth, okay? All right, so tax levy is being proposed 3.5%, which is, falls within our tax cap for the year. Any questions or comments on that? All righty, transportation requests, any comments or questions there?
This does not supersede the immunization requirement by New York State. We're gonna approve this.
Contingent on them getting vaccinated. So, are they a new move-in? So I will reiterate,
Yes.
this has gotten out of control.
It'll be starting next year, as we talked about last time, April 1st, or we did
Yeah,
last
I mean,
time.
we're at July 30th, this is
Yep.
dated, and the deadline's back in the spring.
If we are even still allowed to transit.
Right. It's just not fair to our own staff to have to figure this out, after it's already done.
Agreed. Since we've already let them through after April.
Right.
We'll make sure next year that it sticks right out there for the most part, and we'll be on the letters and we'll be on the follow-ups.
Okay, athletic placement policy request. Take it away, Nick.
This is just from last month, the student who would like to move up to JV soccer. And went back to, our policy states you have to approve it before they do the testing. So it wouldn't be results until you approve that they can go through. So this is only JV soccer, it's not varsity. And it's not displacing anyone per se.
Really, does it say that? Because that isn't the way we've done it before.
Yeah, policy says, I know. on this, and
I'm sorry, I spent the time on the new one, Nick, I didn't look at the old one.
Number 6, the board concurs with the committee's decision that the student is ready for the next level of competition. Anticipate the athletic director to implement the selective classification program procedures provided in the state education department.
So is this recommendation just coming from the athletic director
And the coach.
and the coach?
So, but if you go back through this, Nick, number 3 is that there's a committee. Has the committee been formed?
Yes, it's a PE, a coach, and the athletic director.
And they all concur with this?
Yes, through Brian, this is that this kid is, that this student fits the JV profile program. They're just too athletic on the modified level, and would probably take away from the other teammates at that level.
And what about guidance for the academic and emotional, social?
From Brian, says everything is.
Let me interject. Myself and Ms. Buteau are always part of the APP process at the middle school, so it would be myself, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Dunn, at the recommendation of the coach, along with Ms. Buteau.
Okay, so you guys have already done that?
Yes, that part, assuming I know who this young lady is, yes, that meeting.
It's the only
is
one.
taking place,
Yeah. Okay, all right. So the committee is recommending this to us, and they've gone through the process all the way, except for the
Physical test.
physical test, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And with practice, yeah, we said last, a couple weeks ago, that
Right.
timeframe. They start the week after next.
Okay.
Okay, we good with that? Okay, policy. Anything to report?
Yeah, I'll talk on this. We talked about the non-resident students policy 7131. With the board's recommendation or the board's approval, we've got 2 changes on here. And so I'm going to talk to you about the 2 changes, and then hopefully we can have a special convening of the board in the next few weeks to approve this. So the one recommendation is that we wanted to put in that all non-district students must provide written notice by July 1st. And the reason why we were talking about this is because we could have a non-district student wanting to come in, or more specifically, I'll use this as an example. We could have a teacher who decides to bring their son or daughter in September 1, and because it's a contractual issue, we have to oblige. What happens if that student is in kindergarten, and that puts us over a limit where we would have to hire a teacher? I know this is all hypothetical, but we're trying to prevent problems before they actually happen. So actually by having, and now compounding that, what happens if we have 2 or 3 or 4 students in the same grade level, and that would put us over the maximum or a limit that we're comfortable. We don't want to be in a position where we have to hire a staff member, last minute. That's not fair to anyone. So if we did,
That could happen if they're
it could happen.
in district.
Yeah, well, it could happen if they're, well, this is for non-district, but
Right.
we're talking about non-district people coming, or non-district, obviously residents, or non-district residents, but just a good example would be a teacher, because we can't turn really them away.
Mhm.
It's a contractual issue. So we would like to input a date, so we're not put in a district in an awkward position.
So you're right, there could still be an in-district move-in.
Yes.
We
Right.
can't control that,
Can't
but
control
we're
that.
trying to put some parameters around the rest.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was one change we wanted to include, and then the other change was just, we have it in here already, and we discussed this. This was the multiple minor infractions that disrupt the educational environment, because there could be a student who doesn't quite fit the attendance bill, doesn't quite fit like an egregious disciplinary infraction, but they're just constantly in trouble, constantly being disciplined, but maybe not at the level where they would require, a suspension or any kind of discipline referral. But it's the student that's continually taken away from the teacher's time, continually taken away from the principal's time, we want to make sure that we include that, that could be a reason why a student would be asked to leave or required to leave.
Prior to this, it required that it would be something that would require suspension.
Correct.
Yeah, we didn't have anything about the minor things. I think that's the real issue. We had Jen
And Stacy.
and Stacy present, and they were talking about there are kids that create a lot of disruptions, but it's not egregious. It's not at the point where they would require,
But it's
you know,
a
discipline.
accumulation of
Yeah.
a number of small things that they really wanted to be able to address.
And so then they would be able to ask the student to return to their home district.
Absolutely, yeah. So those are the two really changes that we wanted to include for the non-resident students.
And this was agreed to by Jen and.
They're the ones that
Yeah,
brought it.
yeah, they're the ones that brought it up,
Yes.
So because we're kind of under the gun, so to speak, to use that term, we want to get this approved before the school year starts. Those are the two recommendations or the changes we'd like to make verbally. And then hopefully we can get that sent out to you guys, we can look at it, and then we can have a special board meeting just to meet to approve this.
We do have also for the principal at the end of the month, so we could.
Yeah, absolutely, tack
And
it on to
have
that.
we approved the non-tuition policy yet for this year?
No, but we were okay doing that after school started.
So we wouldn't add a tuition this year, because it would be fair to.
You mean the tuition rate policy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. This would just put in place the fact that we accept them, and our current policy says there is no tuition rate. And Nick was comfortable if we did that the first board meeting of September.
Since our recommendation will be no changes to tuition, because we felt it would be unfair to,
It's too late.
you know, families coming in now. And just to let you know, Fonda got back to me, they charge $4,110 tuition.
That's what I heard was 4,000, so.
And we also talked about the concept of the family piece. We just felt like we would be cutting off our nose, say a family of 5 kids, and 2 of them were in, and we guarantee those next 3. And then we found out that those 3 put us over the edge, you know, over the top, so we have to feel comfortable that it has to be a year-to-year basis.
Or there's discipline issues that, again,
Yeah.
you know, where they're coming from on those students, so giving them a guarantee and kind of breaks other parameters of the policy.
Yeah, we're just trying to look at as many different scenarios as we can to protect the district, obviously, and what's good for students as well.
And Fort Plain put a, they did not increase, but they passed a moratorium on accepting out-of-district students. Yeah.
Okay, anything else on policy?
No, we
So
were,
we'll address this, a final form of this, late October, late August meeting.
Yeah, we'll have
Yes.
to document for it.
yeah, so we should have that.
You want to talk about the other one?
Yeah, the athletic placement, yeah, so,
Can I just say
Yeah, yeah,
one
go.
other thing, which is, in the past, what we've generally done when there's, well, this one came up last week, I forget. But in general, we have it printed up with yellow highlighted areas that are proposed changes, just, I know this was just before this meeting, so we'll let you slide on this one. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
It will be.
so our next one, the next one that we talked about was the athletic placement process of middle school athletic or athletes. This is policy 7423. So we talked about several changes. This is more comprehensive. What we added to the original change was that we wanted to add the committee, make sure that the same committee that you were just talking about, we wanted to make sure that that was included. It's in here, but make sure it's spelled out directly that the committee will meet really before the whole process begins. There'll be a few steps before that. Basically the parent has to sign off first to make sure you give permission that we can go through the process. It's got to be administrative approval. The athletic director needs to get involved before the process, and then the committee meets. And after the committee meets and says, okay, everything looks good, if it doesn't look good, the process stops at that point. And that process is like, is the student socially ready? Is academically ready? Is it physically fit? Do we think that they're able to compete at a level? Are they going to benefit from that? Are they going to help out the team? There's a bunch of things they have to look at. Then there's a medical clearance they gotta go through, a sport skill evaluation, physical fitness testing, qualifications, and then we wanna make sure that all of the information, all the tests, all the evaluations, the kid is, or the student is able to compete at a higher level. To make sure that the student is ready on all levels, not just physical, mental, social, academically ready. Then at that point, the student can try out. There's records, and then there's notifications. We also want to make sure that the middle school student does not, outrated as it's written, it says high school athlete should not be denied the opportunity to participate as a result of the middle school student competing at a higher level. So we talked a little bit about that. Then there's a final decision, that obviously the Board of Education, we have to approve it, as we just did the other one. It's really kind of about, there's a lot to it, but that was really the crux of what we discussed.
There was two pieces in there, we talked about it, the displacement, or it was very odd wording. We just want to make sure that the student at a higher level is not replaced on the team, they're still on the team.
Yeah.
Right, that makes sense? So displaced could mean playing time, but any kid can take a kid over in playing time, but it wouldn't be, his spot on the team would be removed away. And if he refuses to, if he wants to quit later on, that's another issue, but the student not be replaced.
So I assume this, with changes will be in September or something?
Yes.
Yeah, this one isn't as pressing
Okay.
as the other one that we talked about, the non-resident students.
And we also updated the language, we used to say selective classification, it's APP now. So,
That's true,
yeah.
Okay, so the consent agenda was
We've done,
presented and seconded, and all in favor?
actually, Mark.
One thing, the capital project piece, it wasn't added in the approval.
Okay.
Can we add that now?
Yes.
We can.
That's a WX, make it X.
That's what Gary talked about.
Right.
Oh,
We're
okay.
okay with
Okay, so you
his
get that X,
approval.
That's X.
okay, and so is that agreeable, you just add that?
So to be specific, it's fund the football goalposts, the bus garage work, the teacher room, and the track and field asphalt walkway.
Correct. And then we will reevaluate again next month and see what the contingency money is left there as well. Come back. So it's, they are really doing an outstanding job. And I think, we're very fortunate. They're working Saturdays, nights. It's getting quite interesting, but they're gonna make sure it's finished.
Good.
A lot of faith in what they're doing, so it's gonna be encouraging to have everything up and ready. So,
Okay, so the motion was made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I
Oh.
go who was the motion in the second? I cut
The
you off,
motion was for
sorry.
consent agenda,
Yes, yeah.
and do you have who made it and who seconded?
Okay. Yep, Chris and Jen,
Okay,
we're good.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Personnel resignations. We have Bowerman resigning as the modified coach with the expectation of moving up to JV, I believe.
correct, that'll be in the appointments, yeah.
Okay, and then we have, let's see what else we have here. Corona resigning her English position, moved to another district, a nearby district, in fact.
Colleague.
Yeah.
And then I forgot the Booth resignation, she also has been appointed to the elementary secretary position. So
Correct.
she has to resign this first in order to see that appointment. Any questions on any of those? Okay, so we'll move on to appointment. Oh, so first we can, I guess, let's have
Yes.
a motion, to we do all of them together?
We have to do the, resignations first and then.
I was thinking we do all the resignations together.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I have a motion, do I have a motion to do all three resignations?
I'll motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, appointments. Questions? I'm sorry?
Are you, do you want questions or are you gonna read through?
I guess we go through them. Craig, probationary appointment.
Craig is the elementary teacher.
Okay.
Excellent candidate. I've taught a couple of school districts outside the state, also over in England, and it was very impressive in the interviews, both interviews. They were really lucky your husband was in the Army, or in the services, and they moved to Cherry Valley.
Okay, I would like to, because we're discussing personnel, I would like to entertain a motion to move into executive session for any questions on any of these appointments.
Motion.
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?